Afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Facebook Live. Thank you very much for joining us here on our Facebook page. For those of you that's joining us here for the first time, I hope you know by now that each and every single Monday and Wednesday around 12:15 we have our live broadcast as we showcase some amazing things that's happening within tech, within our industry. What we're going to do today is we are going to submerge you into a whole other world. I'm so excited to talk to the following two gentlemen. You know, we've heard so much about Amazon and we hear about Shopify, but we have so many amazing companies, and this is definitely one of those companies that's doing so much within the commerce space. So, with me here today, I got Ryan, Director of Partnerships and Business Development at Smith Labs, and also right next to him, Senior Creative Technologist. Mark, thank you so much for joining us today. Let's talk firstly about what is Smith Labs, and you have been in the Gatineau area for 25 years now, which is pretty spectacular. And I feel awful that now is the first time I really get to showcase you, so we are going to have a blast today. But maybe you can talk a little bit to us, Ryan, about where you guys have come from, what you guys specialize in, and we'll take the next step from there.
Thanks a lot. It's a pleasure. So Smith, maybe the reason you haven't heard of Smith is we went through a rebrand a few years back. It was known as Cactus Commerce prior to that. Did a few mergers, got some great investors on board, and the company has evolved over these 20 years into what we are now, which is one of the preeminent commerce agencies in the world. So what that means is, from an agency perspective, we go into generally large enterprise companies. We look at their business, we look at how they're doing commerce, and then we look at how we can transform that currently. So maybe they're on old architecture and old back end and whatnot. What can we do with today's technology to enhance that, improve that, replace that? All of those things get taken into consideration. Smith Labs that you see is a relatively new extension of that. There was an investment made within our company to really start thinking about what does commerce mean now and what does commerce mean 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And so the technology that Mark and I work within and our team works within is really answering those questions. So we can show a little bit about that today, and yeah.
Now, you say technologies to change commerce. Now, this is where it gets interesting, and we're going to showcase some of this now. What do you mean? What type of technologies are you guys experimenting with at the moment? How are you changing commerce? Because we already just think, we're going to go on a site, we see a shop, we buy it. And I want you to talk about, just before we started, we talk a little bit about how buying is changing. It's not what you buy, but it's how you buy. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. You can jump in if you want to. So you see a HoloLens sitting there on the desk. We'll get into that. So a lot of what we're doing is centered around a few key technologies, that being augmented reality and virtual reality. Mostly augmented reality. That's where we really believe the leaps and bounds will take place within our business, as well as AI. AI is an extremely important part. Things like chatbots, as well as voice. Voice is kind of the path of least resistance when you're talking about how to do any interaction, really. So we're looking at all of these technologies, leading with augmented reality and HoloLens being definitely the best headset on the market to showcase this. So when we talk about where's commerce going, and you look at these technologies, it's really the last interface. Everybody in the industry, and everybody's investing in this. This is Microsoft, this is Google, this is Facebook, Amazon, you name it. They have large billion-dollar investments into this world because they know it's truly the last interface. So you see something like this, that's where we are now. With the glasses on your head, soon enough, that'll be the technology we're carrying or walking around with, and your entire life can be augmented. And so what that means for commerce is when we say it's not about what we buy, it's about how we buy it, well, those transactions and those interactions can take place anywhere. It can be on the top of a mountain, it can be here in this room, it can be in a store. So these are the areas we're experimenting in. These are the areas that our clients are coming to us and saying, what does our business look like under that model? So.
Yeah, you think about the advent of the World Wide Web back in the 90s. Nobody knew what to do with it at first, but it didn't take very long before people figured out that you could build stores on the web. You could do something like a company like Amazon got really good at. Same with the advent of mobile 10 years ago when the iPhone came out and smartphones became the rule. Everybody knew we'd be using these devices to buy things, to sell things, to find out about products and services and stuff like that. These new media, especially augmented reality, and other technologies as well, like machine learning, voice recognition, all of these things, they're all going to get used. There will be a day when you're going to have fancy glasses on your head and you're going to go like this and buy yourself a cup of coffee. We know that it's coming, having seen these revolutions in the past, and knowing that it's coming, we can get ourselves ready right now for when the wave breaks and everybody's doing it.
Beautiful, fantastic. Now I know our viewers there, if you're watching this, we are here at the Innovation Center at Bayview Yards. Today I'm talking with two gentlemen from Smith Labs, Ryan and Mark. Thank you so much for coming out. Let's get into what you are doing, and you can give us a little bit because I am always very intrigued about, you hear augmented reality, you hear mixed reality, you hear artificial intelligence. We hear this a lot. So maybe you can explain to me, and maybe Mark, I'll let you kind of jump into the demo a little bit there, and then Ryan, you can kind of walk us through it as well. What is this? What is augmented reality? What is mixed reality? And maybe speak to that a little bit.
Get this going.
All right. So this is the HoloLens. HoloLens is still a pretty limited device. Basically reserved for developers at this stage. Microsoft has made some really great moves in the market with their new headsets that are coming out, and consumers will have a lot more access to them, or already do have a lot more access to them via these OEMs like Samsung and Dell. So this platform, Microsoft made a very aggressive move into the market to really kind of define what mixed reality and augmented reality will become. So with these, we can start creating content. We got a piece of content we're putting up here right now that you'll see.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
All right. So let me just explain. So what are we seeing here on the screen now? So what's happening here?
So this is true mixed reality. So mixed reality being that we're augmenting the physical space that we're using around us, right? So you're seeing Canada 150, what we did when we first got the team really together and got our HoloLenses and started developing. We thought it would be a great shout out to Canada for the celebrate the 150. So we went ahead and we made an interactive map of Canada. You can actually download it on the HoloLens store, and you can go and discover each province. There's facts, kind of interesting tidbits about Canada. Canada is really invested in this technology too. I know I watched Justin Trudeau have one of these on his head out at Microsoft Garage in Vancouver. Some of the investments that are being made by the federal government are all lining up with AR and AI, and they realize that this is kind of the next frontier too. So this is all holographic. The HoloLens headset is a self-contained computer, meaning you can take it anywhere. You're not tethered like you would be with a traditional VR. You can augment your environment anywhere you might want to be. It could be outdoors. It's better with a bit of low light, like this room. So you can see Mark kind of scanning through. There's great audio in here too. We can't pick it up, but so these are great visual and auditory experiences. So if you think about this for buying, think about when you go shopping in a online experience. You've got a very 2D experience now. You can look at a product. You might be able to do a 360. You might be able to look at multiple pictures. What's changing here is now we have the ability to walk around. We have ability to interact, with salespeople, with companies that might, not otherwise be able to show you their product. Yeah. So they could be somewhere far off across the world, but we can augment exactly what's taking place in the room that we're in. We can discover it. We can look at it. It's really neat. It's
pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
I love this. By the way, everybody in the background there, hello, can you wait for it? I love it. Now, one thing I want to ask as well, and we finally get to see Jordan behind the camera as well. She didn't expect herself to be on camera today, but there she is. But what I love about this is that you have managed to, showcase this so you can involve yourself, engage with the shopping experience while still being able to see your surroundings and engage with that. So it's not a complete virtual reality environment, but as you just said, the augmented reality that you're showcasing. So what do you find in that aspect? Why is it so important to play this way per se, and not jumping into a virtual reality store itself?
What's really neat about a device like this is with a virtual reality headset, with like an Oculus Rift, you really are transported to a totally other place, and you're gone from the world. You can't see the world that's around you, and it's sort of like going through a virtual environment. Your head can move things, and it's neat, but there's no interaction with the actual world. There's no way to add things to the real world as it exists all around you, which is what's really exciting about this new medium, in fact. I mean, it's like the invention of television or film or something like that, is that it's going to, instead of, cyberspace, which took us out from the real world into the web and surfing the web and disconnected from everything, this is going to allow us to reconnect with our physical environment, with real physical objects and people around us, and add things to them in very interesting ways. That's what I think the promise of this stuff really is.
Yeah. A lot of people are uncomfortable being in a VR environment. There is motion sickness that comes along with it. It is a different experience, but the really nice part about augmented reality and mixed reality is everybody has it available today on their phones. So in its simplest form, Apple made some announcements around ARKit, Google around ARCore. We've developed some apps for that, because while this is amazing and you can do some pretty wonderful things with a head-mounted display, the majority of consumers and people out there have a phone in their hand that's fully capable. So Pokemon Go was a great example of early AR and getting people out and excited and using kind of the very basics of augmented reality. Well, with the evolution of ARKit and ARCore, now we're seeing, you just have to do a quick Google to see some of the stuff that's coming out from independent developers. A couple of guys will throw something together that's amazing, that nobody's seen before. So that's just going to evolve. Like Mark was saying, it's like the early days of the iPhone store. We were there. We didn't know what was coming. You could imagine a bit, but it's going to be up to the developer and tech community to really define that.
I'm going to ask you one more question, and we briefly touched on this prior to this, and you said, you came from a entertainment creative background, and here we are now, building into e-commerce and being part of that whole different realm as well. But how important it is making that an entertaining experience. We spoke about that. So maybe you can share with us, how I don't think we all quite just understand how wonderful it is to be able to integrate those worlds, and someone that's come from that type of creative background to really now be submerged in a whole other realm and playing such a key role in generating revenue for a company and taking someone through that buying experience. I mean, what do you think for yourself, even Mark, as a creative individual, what do you feel that means for the future of mixed reality? What do you feel that means for augmented reality? What do you think it means for someone that comes from that creative background that think, hey, you know what, I never thought I could actually be a part of this and help contribute to this realm?
It's a really great question. Retail is theater, fundamentally. A large part of what drives a purchasing decision is the desire to be entertained and to be interested and to be engaged in things. What's exciting to me about these new technologies is that it lets you do things that you couldn't do before. Like the ability to have the internet in your pocket change things, like the ability to talk to every other computer in the world on your own computer change things, like the invention of film changed things, the way we told stories, the way we interacted with each other. That's where I think the really interesting sort of you know what I mean, like the potential really lies in these things.
Sure, yeah. And Mark said it well. And yes, we came from this entertainment background dealing with, companies like Star Wars and Disney, and where you were tasked to create these amazing experiences that generally lived online in a 2D experience. So when you think about how that's going to change when you can have that experience anywhere, it's pretty interesting. And then from a commerce angle, it's even more interesting for B2B and for small businesses. I mean, you could take an area of a city, augment the entire area, and be pushing offers to people as they're walking, through that area, augmenting the environment to maybe what it looked like 10 years ago or 100 years ago or 100 years in the future. The possibilities are really endless. So the possibilities for transactions are pretty endless too. So yeah, that's one.
You're no longer constrained to these glowing pieces of glass, which is what we've got today. We've got big ones and medium-sized ones and little ones. These black mirrors, as they call them, are going to go away, and we're going to have the ability to put stuff anywhere in the world, wherever we are, and it's actually magic.
Yeah, I love that. That is magic. So thank you, gentlemen. I mean, this is so engaging. We could talk about this really all day long because we can really dive deep into how this applies. Not just, we're looking really far out into the future, but not just how it applies to a buyer, but also how it applies to the seller and how businesses will have to evolve and change and be more creative and think about their products and the application of those products on a whole new realm than they've ever done before. The question, I guess, is how soon do they start thinking about that and how soon, is those changes and how quickly can those changes take place? So maybe you can speak a little bit, just let's touch on that briefly. What do you think, what needs to happen in that realm and how do people need to think?
Very briefly, generally speaking, when anything is changing, especially things that are exponential, like all these computer things usually are, we tend to overestimate the short term. Things don't move as quickly as we think they should in the first year or two, but we tend to underestimate the long term. So 5 and 10 years out, we can't see how much change is coming because our brains can't wrap themselves around it. That's the right perspective, I think, to take on these things. Patience in the short term, but be prepared to think crazy thoughts about the long term.
Crazy thoughts for the long term.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's okay. So thank you very much for joining me today. Ryan and Mark, I really appreciate having you on the show, talking a little bit more about Smith Labs and what you guys are up to. It's so exciting to have you once again right here in our backyard and doing so many amazing things. For those of you that join us, make sure that you stay tuned. Join us each and every single Monday right here on Techopia Live as we showcase some of the amazing companies that is doing amazing things around the world. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great day. Bye.